So just at the one.
You said Hannah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
There's a nice change in scenery from packing up.
Check.
So just click escape. Okay. Yeah, so this is mine. I downloaded it. It's not on right now. You have to switch it on and then speak. And when you're ready to speak, switch. Okay, so then working is
Different, you know.
You can hold it now and then grab your pants when you're ready. Okay. You can also just like tuck it into your waistband. She's like, like songs. You hear No. And these my pants and I'm not ready. Damn, it's expensive, baby.
There's like 10 kids in the class. I can't go. You might have been all four of our class. And then we had one online. Yeah. So we did that.
Hi. What's up?
Oh, cool.
We have a stand. I've never seen this trick before.
So just before and after you talk, you just have to make sure it's on.
We're just gonna go one way down.
It's gonna fall.
One online, and it's like two balls. next year, I'm going to come earlier.
I'm not getting so close. I'm getting better credit. So I use 9 credits. I just have a specific classes. Let's say there's a public one, there's an honors public study. That's just 3 credits. And the honors has 3 credits. That's why there I have like a lot of and then you do this, something graduate. It's like, it's all but a lot of the courses are intro to ethics. These are some of the types of statistics, it's good, it's fun. I don't know if there's a physics one. I mean, I will second one. Okay. I'll just see quickly. I have it on myself.
That's tapered off as we
It's a lot easier to like, that was in like right when I got here. So it's a lot easier. There's a lot of them actually have a general education classes. But I'm thinking like else for other teachers and maybe specialists. I like service. I liked it. It was still tough. I could see it was especially for him. He was years ago. And I feel like I could get used to it if I did. I'm going to it's really close to the class, so that's the way. It's like 15 minutes. It's 30 minutes. It's like at the custom state of you're right, yeah, it's like kind of same custom. It works in that everything goes to plan, so you never know everything's going to go pretty swimming through the which doesn't great. It's amazing. I haven't had to teach one bad. Sure. Every class is pretty good. It has more than one class going on.
I heard it last night. It was pretty good.
You think so? Really? I thought I was doing like the least. Okay.
Just do
Get that thought.
Thanks, Scarlett.
You're welcome.
If they are, they're not taking the whole thing. That's the one of the reasons I'm not
So I have a few.
But they definitely have more.
Oh, by the way, I just say it. And Dr. Stout knows my name. So
No, you're.
I've heard him pronounce it correctly without a note.
Let's move this thing out of the way, right?
Because I'm
Yeah, but I can't.
and I still had it.
Yeah, I told you.
12 credits.
That's why we
And I think 6 I didn't go.
The mic? Yeah, turn it on.
That was 40 credits. So I just you can take like even if you're like, probably good time to do something. You already know. Like the buildings around.
Hello, everyone. Well, welcome to Honors Symposium. So glad to have you all here. Really appreciate it. So welcome, everyone. I'm Professor Jonathan Moshberger. Here at Brookdale, I teach political science and coordinate the honors program. I want to thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. I'm so grateful to have so many amazing colleagues and family and friends that are here to support our students and, of course, our fellow students and honors students. It's really great to have you all come out to this session. So I'm so grateful for that. This is a special day for sure. It really is. It's a highlight of our students, at least one of the highlights of our students' time with us. And so it's our capstone. That's what Honors Symposium is. It's our capstone of honors at Brookdale, and whereby our students will present some of their outstanding coursework. It could be a paper, it could be a project that they did in one of their classes. Usually it's from one of their honors courses, but it could be from any course. It could be a course within their major, and then they work with a professor to hone it, to get into a professional style presentation for the big day, for our special occasion, Honors Symposium. We're so excited. We have so many presenters today. It's amazing, that we have so many. I'm so excited about that, and I can't wait to see all their presentations. So it's an honor to be here with all of you, and it's an honor to introduce to all of you the president of Brookdale Community College, Dr. David Stout.
Thank you so much, Professor. Welcome everyone to the Honors Symposium. This is a really exciting day. Honors at Brookdale is something that's incredibly close to my heart as a person who, as a faculty member here years ago, used to be the coordinator of the honors program, and it was something that was just a highlight of my experience here at the institution. So having an opportunity to work with students who are so academically minded and are so academically motivated. You're going on to some of the top schools throughout New Jersey, throughout the country. We're so happy that Brookdale has been a part of your journey. And personally, I'm so happy to have had the opportunity to get to know so many of you who are in this program and through other mechanisms. But I did want to stop and talk just briefly about your honors coordinators, because we would not have a program here, an honors program of this caliber, that is really preparing students to go, as I said, to some of the top schools. And I'm really not, some of our students are going on to Ivy League institutions from here. And they are very well prepared to do so because of their experience coming through the honors program. Thank you both very much for the work that you've done. It truly is an exceptional program. I mentioned briefly that I had a stop along the way as a faculty member coordinating this program. I was nothing back then like what it is today. So they have really taken this to very new heights. And I just want to say thank you very much for all of your work in making sure that the students have had this opportunity, and to all of our faculty mentors who have helped our students along the way to get here today. Just want to say thank you as well. For you students, I'm excited to hear your presentations. The product of all of your hard work really makes us very excited. You have a lot of the senior leaders who are here in the room with you who are also very excited to hear the product of your work. Some of us are going to have to be bouncing between meetings, so if you do see us leave briefly, we'll be back. Please don't be offended if we have to walk out in the middle of your presentation. We do want to be here, and as well as other locations where there are activities are going on. So good luck. I know some of you are nervous. You're going to do great. And once again, thanks for really putting your trust here in Brookdale. I hope that you've had an incredible experience. Good luck beyond Brookdale, wherever you go. And thank you again, once again, to our coordinators.
Thanks so much, Dr. Stout. So appreciate it. We're so glad to have you here and to have all your support. So this is a special day for sure. Right? I look at this big culmination, this great culmination, this synthesis of our students' time with us, right? Everything coming together for, what is a special day. I want you to remember this. For today, for graduation next week, always. It's a line that I heard growing up. It's something that resonated with me, and I hope it resonates with everybody in the audience today. And it went I remember it a little bit differently. I remember it as each new day should be unwrapped like a precious gift. This was by Harry Harrison. He was a radio personality. It was on an oldie station back in the 1980s and would say this like every morning. And so think about that, right? That each new day should be unwrapped like a precious gift. And you are all gifts to us, right? And we really appreciate you coming here, coming to Brookdale, for your parents, right? And family and friends and support network, and for our students especially. Thank you so much for choosing Brookdale. You're amazing. You are so amazing, and we can't thank you enough for sharing your gifts with us. So thank you so much. So special occasion, our presenters are so special and so awesome, I can't wait. Our faculty advisors are awesome. It's so great to see so many of them, some I haven't seen in a little bit. But I want to thank you so much for your work too in helping the students get to this point, helping them hone their presentations into real powerful presentations. And so we're going to turn it over to my colleague, my partner in all things honors, Professor Ana Teodorescu will get us started.
Thank you very much. My name is Ana Teodorescu. I am a math professor here at Brookdale, and I joined the honors program as assistant chair in January of 2024, so I'm relatively new. I teach honors statistics, and I know some of the students here who are graduating with honors, but not all. But Professor Marshberger knows everybody. He knows everybody's story. He reads every word of every application that comes in, every word of every essay, every word of every project. And he is extremely considerate and giving advice and support to everybody, to his students. He's just heart and soul here for the students. So I'm really, really excited to be working with him. We're gonna move things along real quick because we're a little bit behind. We had a little bit of technical delay getting started. So we will have an intermission, so we're not gonna go through everything without a break. You will get a break a little past the middle. But I want to tell you about the one student that I advised for the symposium. Our first presenter is Ange Trinidad. She is graduating with an Associate's in Business Administration from Brookdale. She is transferring to Rutgers Business School to pursue a degree in finance with the focus on real estate. In her studies at Brookdale, she did a study abroad program, and she studied sustainable business practices at University of Montpellier, France. She spent the summer in France, and there she made friends and started a new e-commerce business with her new friends in France. She is currently pursuing a new venture in wholesale real estate and planning to expand into Airbnb arbitrage in 2026. So that's pretty impressive so far. So her project is a continuation of a paper that she did in an English class. Now, if you remember from the beginning of when I started to talk, I'm a math professor, so how did I end up advising her for an English paper, continuation of an English research paper? Well, Ange was in my honors statistics, and she wanted to use her knowledge of technology that she learned in that class to investigate and process more data. So she went to the CDC website and got more data after she finished her project. Most of the charts that you're going to see are made by her. She didn't find them somewhere online. She made all of these herself using raw data. So without further ado, here's Ange.
Hello? Okay, perfect. Hello? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Angelina. Today I'm going to be talking to you all about an increasingly important topic, and that is adolescent vaping. This project began in my honors English writing class, and I see my professor over there, Professor Grammer. And basically, I conducted a research essay which was focused on nicotine and its effects on the adolescent brain and body. I came up with the hypothesis that the allure of nicotine often lies in the subtle yet potent feelings it evokes, primarily in the pursuit of independence and the formation of identity, often through smoking or vaping. Today we'll take a look at 1. Teen motivations. Why do teens vape? 2. The health effects. The dangers of vaping on the teen body. 3. The rise of vaping amongst high school students and the changes seen within the last decade. And 4. How you can play a role in addressing this issue. By the end of this presentation, I hope that you can walk away with a clearer understanding and feel equipped to make a positive impact. Firstly, to understand adolescent vaping, we must understand their motivations for vaping in the first place. In a study conducted by a group of PhD professionals, specifically led by Middlemark, a professor at the University of Minnesota, they sought to understand smoking motivations amongst adolescents. Specifically, the childhood antecedents of smoking study was used over 2 years amongst a group of Minnesota adolescents. Out of all the smoking characteristics, 3 were found to be the most prominent, and these are independence, rebelliousness, and smoker's image. Phrases such as, "I've often gone against my parents' wishes," "If I want to smoke, that's my business," and "Smoking can make you look good" were common amongst these adolescents. Understanding these motivations are crucial because it reveals that vaping is not just about the physical act, but it's about a deeper need for self-expression and control. As we dive deeper into the health impacts of vaping, these psychological factors continue to play a significant role in shaping teen behavior. Now we are looking at the serious impacts of vaping on an adolescent's brain and body. First, it impacts the developing brain. Nicotine disrupts the prefrontal cortex, which plays a key role in decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation. It can lead to cognitive impairments, difficulties with self-control, especially during stressful situations. Next, vaping exposes teens to harmful chemicals such as diacetyl, which causes popcorn lung, which is a very serious condition similar to COPD. These consequences can last into adulthood, increasing the risk of mental health issues. While many turn to vaping to combat these symptoms such as depression and anxiety, it actually increases these symptoms. The combination of brain and lung damage makes vaping a very serious health risk for teens' bodies that are still developing. Here is an image of popcorn lung. In the early stages of BOS, the technical term being breakup structure, you can see an injured airway, inflammation, and early scarring. This scarring of the airways can lead to persistent symptoms like coughing, wheezing, and shortness of breath. In the late stages of BOS, you can see permanent scarring where no air is able to pass through the bronchi tube. In 2015, 2.39 US high school students were vaping. 3 years later, we see a 51% increase in high school students who vape. And in 2018, we see 3.6 million US high school students who are vaping. This is captured by this graph that I made. It shows a positive trend indicating that if the rate continues as it has, we can expect to see vaping rates to keep rising. For instance, by 2024, approximately 5.76 million US high school students will be vaping. This is approximately 38.4% of the US high school student population. The regression line gives us a glimpse into the future, but it also foreshadows that external influences could alter this trajectory. So I have a question for you all. How many of you believe that US high school vaping rates have increased throughout the years? You can raise your hand. Okay, interesting. Because the truth is that vaping amongst high school students has declined significantly. Many also believe that there's been no improvement and that the problem is only getting worse. However, progress has been made due to many federal efforts, and persistent efforts are necessary to continue to prevent youth vaping. Now we're looking at this chart, the percentages of US high school students who were vaping from 2019 to 2024. As you can see, in 2019, it continued with the trend from 2015, steadily increasing. In 2020, we see a slight drop, and this is because of the COVID lockdown. And then in 2022, we see a slight increase again, and this is because schools resume in-person instruction fully. In 2024, we see the lowest point on the chart, and this is because of the largest FDA involvement in vaping prevention measures. The decline throughout the years has been significantly due to public health initiatives. Here are some important efforts that have been made throughout the years. In fall of 2019, the FDA launched its first youth e-cigarette prevention TV ads as a part of the Real Cost campaign, aiming to educate teens about the risks of vaping. Here's an example of one of these campaigns.
Want me to click?
Yes, please.
Second, the computer's muted. Thank you. You're welcome. Turn the volume.
It's proven that vapes cause real harm. Every vape is a hit to your health. For more proof, search vaping harms.
In January of 2020, the FDA issued a policy banning the sale of most flavored e-cigarettes, including fruit, candy, and mint flavors, in convenience stores and gas stations. Most recently, in April of 2025, the Supreme Court ruled the illegalization of the sale of kid-friendly flavored vapes. To wrap up, vaping continues to be a major public health concern. While positive changes have been made, the issue is far from over. It's important that everyone play a role. Here are two resources that you can view. TheTruth.com is a resource with facts and initiatives focused on educating youth about the dangers of nicotine use. The CDC.gov/vaping offers detailed information on health statistics and risks of vaping and nicotine use. It's important for us to stay informed and actively support efforts to protect our youth from the dangers of vaping. Thank you for your attention. Let's work together to clear the air and ensure a healthier future for our teens.
Does anybody have questions for? No questions. Okay.
Should I ask the next? Okay, no time for questions. Ask and after, at the intermission, we ask questions.
I would like to invite up next Professor Ashley Zampunga Krug, to introduce Brooke.
All right, hello everybody. I'm introducing Brooke Shiroki. She will be graduating with an Associate's in Business Administration and will be going on to attend Monmouth University in accounting in the fall. And she's also a recent recipient of the New Jersey CPA Society Scholarship. On top of that, she is a Gold Star Award recipient, and as well as a GCD graduate. And in just a little more than a week, she will be enjoying a study abroad opportunity here at Brookdale, going to Ireland with a group of Brookdale faculty and students. So many exciting things happening in Brooke's world right now. Brooke took both sections of World Civ with me and is a phenomenal student. In World Civ 1, she did a project on Islamic hospitals that was so good that I nominated her for a GCP award. So she's also a GCP award recipient. And this year in World Civ 2, she examined the legacy and history of colonialism in Sudan. And so when she approached me in January and asked, like, would you like to advise me on a project? I'm like, yes. I've never got to do this before, for those of you in the room, so I was super excited. And she came to my office early in the semester with some broad ideas, and one of her initial ideas was, I'd love to do something with propaganda. I'm like, ooh, okay. And then we started talking about genocide, and we were looking at all the genocides and setting up time to go to the Change Center and look at the exhibit and meet with Asia. And I think, as you'll see in just a moment, after a whole semester's worth of meeting and tweaking and consolidating and refining, that what this end result is sort of a perfect ending to a semester of exploring this theme. So I'll take it over to Brooke.
Bear with me having to juggle both the cards and...
Do you want me to flip the slides?
Are
we all set on next?
Oh yeah, can I have the mic? Yeah.
You can
I'm so sorry, guys.
adjust it to any height you need. You're doing great.
How do you adjust?
Very good.
Okay. I think we're good. Okay. 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 Can you hear me well? We're good? Okay, I just want to make sure, because then I'll stumble in the middle of it and I'll mess it up, but okay. So first, let's start with a name. Raphael Lemkin. Raphael Lemkin in the 1920s was a law student who created the word genocide and would go on to officially coin it in his book, Axis Ruled in Occupied Europe, which was published in 1944. He defined it as certain acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. This would go on to be the foundation of the Nuremberg trials, which were the trials that came after World War II. They're what convicted the Nazis for their crimes. But unbeknownst to a lot of people, this term was actually inspired by a genocide that, unlike the Holocaust, received no justice, comparatively, and that is the Armenian genocide. Today, I want to talk about the power of propaganda, and in particular, how propaganda enables genocide denial through the lens of a very famous example of genocide denial, which is the Armenian genocide. We will explore first a brief background on the genocide for anyone who has no idea what I'm talking about. Then we'll talk about how propaganda justifies violence, and finally, how denial continues to shape our world today. So first, let's actually talk about how the genocide happened. The Armenian genocide took place from 1915 to 1923, but for anyone who knows anything about the history of Armenia, you would know that this was centuries in the making. According to the Gale database, at the time, Armenia's territory rested in two individual empires. First, there was Western Armenia, which was in the Ottoman Empire under Islamic rule. Then there was Eastern Armenia, which was in the Russian Empire, which was under Christian rule. The Armenians were generally a Christian group, and so as a result, particularly in Western Armenia, which again was under Islamic rule, they were labeled as outsiders. In 1908, when the Young Turk Revolution happened and the government changed and the whole power dynamic changed up, the
concept of Turkish nationalism was redefined, and unfortunately, the Armenians just did not fit that quota. The Ottomans would go out to carry on a systematic extermination in which 1.5 million Armenians out of the 2 million that existed at the time were murdered. This was both a physical and a cultural genocide, as yes, they went through death marches and torture, but also most of Armenia's culture just completely ceased to exist after this. But now the question remains, how do you convince a nation to kill their neighbors? And the answer is very simple, even if you may not realize it. It's propaganda. Propaganda is not always extreme or obvious. In fact, it can sound reasonable or even protective, and as a result, we are very susceptible to it. So the Ottoman Empire pushed a narrative here. The Armenians, like the Russians, were a majorly Christian group, and the Russians and the Turks, just for context, were on opposite sides of World War I. They were enemies. And so as a result, the Armenians were most likely enemies within, and the actions that the Ottomans were taking against the Armenians were simply precautionary. It was just in case. And so the Armenians would go on to be dehumanized through word of mouth and books and speeches and so much more. I think a great example of this is through a book that the Turkish government published in 1916 during the genocide called The Armenian Revolutionary Aspirations and Movements before and after the proclamation of the Constitution, in which they basically declared a need to deal with the uprising of the Armenians. Finally, it is important to understand that genocide denial does have a long-term impact. Turkey has taken no accountability over 100 years later for anything that they've done. And they continue to spread propaganda today, in modern day, through textbooks, movies, and so much more. And according to the BBC, Article 301 of the Turkish Penal Code even states, and this is a very broad definition, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it is illegal to unfairly criticize the government there publicly, which does include considering the Armenian genocide a genocide at all, because to them that is also propaganda. But propaganda doesn't just stop with Turkey. According to Mark A. Managonian in his research paper, Academic Denial of the Armenian Genocide in American Scholarship, in the 1980s, Turkey hired the same PR firms that, at the very least, aligned with the ones that American tobacco companies hired in the 1950s to deny the connection between smoking and lung cancer. They would go on to change how we think about smoking for a long time, and it would also go on to change how Americans think about the Armenian genocide as a whole. Today, there are scholars that are funded to spread misinformation in America. A great example of this, although they did shut down recently, is the Institute of Turkish Studies, who had been funded by the Turkish government to spread propaganda in the United States. So even with the facts, propaganda does plant that seed of doubt in your head, that maybe the information you have is wrong, that maybe everyone else is wrong, and that can be very dangerous. And there are consequences to denial. For one, it prevents victims from true healing and forgiveness. Victims and their descendants are impacted through generational trauma, so even those that were not directly involved in the genocide are affected, and they will deal with that for the rest of their lives. And so, both sides need to acknowledge the fact that this genocide happened at all, both the perpetrators and the victims, to be able to, at the very least, move past it at all. And secondly, it makes us question the definition of genocide in general. How far does something go before it is considered a genocide? And that can be harmful not even just in the future, but now, as it makes us look at the things going on around us and question, is this genocide, or is this becoming genocide? And that can be a very dangerous conversation to have as a whole, to have us question. So in conclusion, what do we take away from this overall? First, you should listen to the victims and the evidence, as their stories are very important to constructing a truthful narrative. Secondly, and this is very unfortunate, but government denial is everywhere. Governments are always attempting to bury the truth if it's something that makes them look bad. That is not saying you should never listen to what the government says, but that is saying that you should, at the very least, pay attention to everything going on around you. And finally, in the wrong hands, propaganda can and it will destroy lives. As genocide scholar Israel W. Charney once put it, denial is the antithesis of everything that democracy stands for. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. Next up, I would like to invite Professor Squires to come up and introduce Hannah.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce Hannah. Hannah's been a student in a few of my classes. She is also graduating this year and moving on to Rutgers. my alma mater, so I'm very happy about that. What Anna's going to present is her computer science capstone, where she had to decide what it was she wanted to do. She had to design it, she had to build it. So she's going to walk you through all that she needed to do to create this awesome game that she's going to display.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah and my project is called Kitty Comes Cafe. I created this for my software project class and it also doubled as my honors capstone presentation and I'm excited to share it with you today. So outside of school, I'm very passionate about art and I love cooking games and cozy games, so I wanted to combine my major and those other interests to create a relaxing desktop game where players fulfill orders by selecting and serving drinks and pastries. So before coding, there was a lot of work put into this to plan it, and I started that by coming up with the use cases for my project. So in computer science, that's basically everything that a user can do in the system. So the main focus for my game was taking and fulfilling orders. I then had to decide what tools and languages I wanted to use to build my game. So I used Java with JavaFX to code it because I was very familiar with them. And then I used MySQL, which is a database that stores all my game data. This is my user flow diagram, and it's essentially how the user interacts with the computer, and it shows how the game is organized and each step that they have to go through when they use the system. And here I have a cropped version of my database. So it's the menu item table that I created, which has all the drinks and pastries that are in the game. And then I decided to take an object-oriented approach to programming this. So that's breaking everything up into individual objects, and each object has its own purpose. It makes it a lot easier to organize rather than having it all together and then getting confused. So my main ones were the customer, the player, and the screens. And then I have my concept screen layout, so those are the rough drafts of how I wanted each screen to look, so I just drew them out pretty quickly. This one is my main screen, so it's the main background, the cafe, where the customer places their order. And then the kitchen screen is where the player goes to fulfill that order. So unfortunately, I can't show the actual game running because we had the tech issues, but I have the screenshots of my system, so I'm going to pull that up for you.
So would you have to go to email? Yeah, so why don't you continue with the presentation, and we're gonna try to see if we can you're right.
So this is a perfect time to take a little break, and we got more chairs coming, right? So the technical issues are coming at the perfect time with the chairs. And then more people can sit down. We're back in business.
I'm sorry about that. So this is my actual game. I took the screenshots of it so that I could walk you through it if I wasn't able to show it. So this is what the user sees when they first start the game. It's just a start screen, and after you hit play, it takes you to here. And this is the main screen, so this is where the server welcomes you and they ask to take your order. And then the customer will respond with their order, which is randomly generated by the system. So it'll take 1 to 5 items from the database and display them here. And once you hit the button to go to the kitchen, it takes you here. And I have it so that it shuffles the menu items each time you go into that, so it makes it a little harder. But you have to select all the items before the time runs out. So if you don't do that, the customer is angry, so they're gonna ask for the items that you missed. But once you get them right, they're happy, and it'll send you back to the main screen where you can then go through that process again. So I had a lot of ideas for this project, and I didn't get to all of it within the 15 weeks that I had, but for future development, I did want to implement a coin system so that the user would get paid every time they made the correct order, and then they could go and use those coins to update the cafe, get more items, decorate the cats. There's also sound effects and music that I wanted to add, and originally I wanted to hand draw all of the screens for the game, but I didn't have time for that, so they're all AI generated. But I want to get to that. And then for my references, Professor Squires was very helpful. Again, I used AI as a tool, and then I used other sites for visual editing. And I wanted to thank Professor Moshberger and Professor Teodorescu, my honors coordinators. I want to thank my mentor, Professor Squires, for helping me through this. And lastly, I want to say thank you to everyone for being here today and taking the time to learn about my project. This is one of my last events here at the Honors Program, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Hannah. Next up, I'd like to invite up Professor Brian Holland to introduce Logan.
Hello, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce Logan Gardner today. Logan is a psychology student and will be graduating with full honors. and plans to transfer to Stockton to pursue his psychology degree and also pursuit of to be a clinician to obtain his master's degree. So I'm very proud of him. I had Logan for 2 of my classes this semester, Abnormal Psychology and Human Sexuality, and both of those courses require a research project in addition to the research project that he did for the Honors Symposium. So in my Human Sexuality class, he looked at the disparities of mental health between bisexual identifying individuals compared to individuals who identify as gay or lesbian. And in my Abnormal Psychology class, he studied the comorbidity of alcohol use disorder and borderline personality disorder. So Logan also selected a very light topic today, the ethics surrounding euthanasia. I'm very, very proud of him. In his free time beyond the classroom, Logan also mentors young folks in parkour, which I did not know what that was until this semester. But it's a physical discipline that involves jumping and moving. It's quite dynamic. So this highlights not only his athletic discipline and his willingness to mentor young folks, but it also, I think, underscores his ability to inspire others as well. So this ethics of legalizing euthanasia in the United States, it's complex, it's a deeply human topic that reflects intellectual maturity and also compassion, and I think that those are both reflected in my student Logan. So without further ado.
Hello? Can you guys hear me? All right, perfect.
We can hear you.
All right. In the year 2022, a roughly 1.9 million people in the United States would be diagnosed with cancer. 600,000 of cancer diagnoses would prove fatal within that same year. Now, euthanasia is a method where a physician seeks out to interrupt and interpret the suffering of an individual who is suffering usually from a chronic disease. In some countries that includes depression, and end their life on the basis that they have very little prospect for survival, to alleviate their suffering. Now, the word euthanasia itself comes from 2 Greek words, eu meaning good and thanatos meaning death. The word as a whole quite literally translating to a good death. Now, as we stand today, individuals between the ages of 65 to 70 are the most common individuals to seek out euthanasia, as well as individuals with cancer. Thus, it is only a moment away, and I'm sure many of us here have an individual within our lives, within that age range, who this might apply to. And perhaps this gives you a better perspective on what their options would be at the end, towards the end. As mentioned, I've spent 2 years across the honors program researching this topic, and I would like to present to you the many facets of euthanasia. Starting with the ethical debate for euthanasia, looking at euthanasia, then followed by looking at euthanasia in other countries, and finally ending it off with research and statistics surrounding euthanasia. Now, beginning with the debate, there are 2 types of euthanasia: active and passive euthanasia. Now, passive euthanasia I mention here, but it is widely considered as to not be a part of the debate for euthanasia at all. In fact, it is even legal here with things such as DNRs, do not resuscitate orders. That is a form of passive euthanasia where care is removed, where the likely outcome will be the death of the individual. And while that is classified as a part of ethics under euthanasia, it is not widely debated and is legal in most places across the world. Now we get into the stances on euthanasia. There are 2 main stances that operate around euthanasia in the modern times. We have the absolutist stance, or the authoritarian, or the deontological stance, which states that we have an absolute duty to life, and that duty is forthright and therefore cannot be permitted to take from somebody else. Now, we have the other side, which states that while, yes, we do have the right to live and experience personal autonomy, through our personal autonomy, we might waive that right to life as well. And this is where permitting euthanasia comes in. Now, where the US stands. The US stands on something called the traditional stance, first written about in the late 1970s and is upheld today. As according to Thomas Sullivan, the traditional stance involves the fact that we cannot kill another person. And thus, euthanasia in the United States is illegal. Now, to some of you, that might sound incorrect. Some of you might have heard that euthanasia is legal, especially within the state of New Jersey. That is not the case. What is legal within New Jersey is physician-assisted suicide. That is not euthanasia. Euthanasia requires an individual to perform the action, or physician-assisted suicide, my apologies, requires the individual to perform the action of killing themselves, whereas euthanasia is the physician administering the method of death. Moving on to euthanasia in other countries. To provide a timeline, Switzerland provides us with the first decriminalization of euthanasia in 1942, just before the end of World War II. Northern Australia, then, is the first to legalize euthanasia nearly 50 years later in 1995. However, after 9 months in place, this is repealed. And currently, I was unable to find any statistics of any individuals who actually managed to obtain a euthanasia under that regulation. Some other notable ones are the Netherlands in 2002 being the most recent and most upheld act for legalization of euthanasia, alongside Belgium and Luxembourg as well in the late 2000s, and our neighbor to the north, Canada, in 2016 legalizing euthanasia, with the most recent legalization being Western Australia in 2019, as seen in a study by Mraz and colleagues. Looking at regulations, first I'd like to examine the Netherlands regulations, as they tend to be the basis for which other countries use to regulate euthanasia in their countries. The Netherlands requires that individuals prove that they have experienced unbearable suffering via their disease or condition. In this case, in the Netherlands, as I mentioned previously, depression is a valid reason to seek out euthanasia, and in that case it would be assessed not by physicians, but by clinicians alongside physicians. Generally speaking, individuals in the Netherlands who seek out euthanasia will go through roughly 5 to 6 physicians before getting a permit for euthanasia, and which will be acted on within a recent month. I believe they have at least 3 months time frame to act upon the order once it is signed. Now, Switzerland brings an interesting case, because Switzerland is the outlier here. Switzerland only has decriminalization of euthanasia, which means in Switzerland, anybody can perform a euthanasia so long as in a court and legal scenario, they can prove that their intention was not for personal benefit. Now, finally, looking at statistics, cancer trends as the highest motivator towards euthanasia, as can be seen by the Government of Canada's report in 2019 of 5,631 national deaths via euthanasia, 67% were due to cancer. And this is even higher in the Netherlands, as according to the Netherlands report, 91% of euthanasia deaths were sought due to cancer. In the Netherlands, we have also seen that the Netherlands has seen a rate increase from roughly 1.7% of national deaths to 5.4% of total national deaths in the years 2022 and 2023. And as of current, this connection is still being investigated, and a determinant factor as to why these rates have increased has not been found yet. Now, with the second highest causes for individuals to seek out euthanasia being neurological, this being your depression, as well as loss of neurological functioning, therefore traumatic brain injury. alongside respiratory conditions, falling at roughly 10% in Canada and even lower in the Netherlands. And this order also tends to be consistent across both Canada and the Netherlands, alongside many other countries in Europe. Now, looking at euthanasia as individuals and its availability to individuals, across every country, there seems to be almost no gender bias, with a slight, nearly less than 1% almost everywhere, bias towards men, which can be explained by the fact that for every 100 females in an area, there's 101 males. And this is according to the government of the Netherlands. The most common age range, as presented by both the government of Canada and the Netherlands, seems to be around ages 60 to 65. 65 to 70, my apologies. And research suggests, as presented by Andreessen and colleagues, that the grief process is no worse for individuals who go through euthanasia and individuals who have a relative who go through euthanasia. And in fact, there is some argument to be made that the benefits of experiencing the grieving process sooner make it so that euthanasia is actually more beneficial for certain individuals. Now, to cover, we've gone over the ethical debate for euthanasia, what is active and passive euthanasia, and how physician-assisted suicide is not the same thing as euthanasia. We've gone over euthanasia across other countries, providing a timeline, seeing that Switzerland provides us with the first decriminalization and the longest standing regulations on euthanasia, alongside the Netherlands being the model for pretty much every other country that followed, and our neighbors to the north, and the most recent legalization being Northern Australia, or Western Australia. And it trends at a small percentage of national deaths, less than 6% everywhere. And finally, we went over the statistics and research, and how cancer is our highest motivator for individuals to seek out euthanasia, followed by neurological and respiratory motives. The grieving process is no worse for any family or any individual, and it shows no gender bias, alongside holding a slight bias towards older individuals ages 65 to 70. I would like to thank you all for attending the Honors Symposium, and thank you for listening to my presentation.
Great job, Logan. Next up, I'd like to invite up Professor Elizabeth Atram to introduce Jake. Thank you so much. Atram, yeah, close enough. Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming today. I had the pleasure of having Jake as a student in my History 105 World Civ class just this fall. And at the beginning of this semester, he reached out and asked if I'd be his advisor, and I was thrilled to hear from him. He will not be presenting on a project that he did for our class. The project he did for our class was on a World Heritage Site, the Amiens Cathedral in France, and arguing why it should be considered of universal importance. But he will be talking about something that was an interest of his. I think we'll all find it very interesting. So I learned a lot. I had to reach out to some psychology colleagues here since it's outside of my field. But about Jake, he has a twin brother who you'll be hearing from, who was also in my class. So I spent the semester trying to figure out which was which. And he will be heading to Rutgers in the business school, and is a very hard worker, very dedicated student, so I'll turn it over to Jake. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Etram. Okay. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That quote really made me stop and think. Not just about who I spend my time with, but how much of me is actually shaped by those people. We all like to think that we're independent, that we make our own decisions, but the truth is, our choices, our values, and even our mindset are often influenced by the people around us, especially our friends. In this talk, I want to explore how powerful that influence really is, how friendships and social groups shape our behavior, our beliefs, and sometimes even the direction of our lives. We'll look at how group influence works, how it sneaks into our daily lives, and how being intentional about who you surround yourself with can change everything. Let's start with a simple concept. The fact that we mirror the people around us. You ever notice that sometimes you start using some slang of your friend that you just hang out with? That's not coincidence, it's peer influence. Researchers Brett Lawson and Renee Veenstra say peer influence is a powerful mechanism through which adolescents adopt both pro-social and antisocial behaviors. So basically, we mimic the people we like. It helps us to fit in and build stronger connections. And another study from BMC Public Health found that behaviors like exercising, studying, or even eating junk food spread through social networks, kind of like a social flu. And in another model from behavioral sciences, peer influence is shown to operate in cycles. We adopt behaviors, reinforce them within the group, and then we pass them along. Now things get interesting. Let's talk about how being in a group actually changes our behavior. We got a couple terms to go over. And the first up, groupthink. It's that feeling when you just go along with the group just to avoid conflict, even though deep down you disagree. Like when all your friends say, let's stay up all night and study, and you think it's a bad idea, but you do it anyway. Next, we have social loafing. It's like when you're in a group project where half the team mysteriously vanishes after the first meeting. That's loafing. Psychologists call it reduced individual effort in group settings. I just call it freeloading. And then we got the bystander effect, where everyone freezes in an emergency because they believe someone else will step in. In the British Journal of Social Psychology, one study put it like this: the presence of others inhibits helping behavior through a reflexive emotional response. In all these examples, people just follow the group, even when it's not smart, safe, or even fair. And most of the time, they don't even realize they're doing it. Friends don't just influence your behavior, but they shape your decisions too. From what college you apply to even the risks that you're willing to take, peer pressure is real, it's subtle, and it's everywhere. But it's not always emotional, or it's not always about someone daring you to do something dumb. Sometimes it's just emotional. Like when your friend is anxious, and suddenly you feel on edge too. This is called emotional contagion. And research from developmental psychology shows that it plays a huge role in how moods spread through friend groups. Researchers Karen Rudolph, Julie Bowes, and Kenneth Dodge explain that peer contagion can influence a wide range of behaviors, from internal struggles like anxiety and depression, to outward actions like risk-taking and rule-breaking, especially during adolescence when peer approval is highly valued. So now the big question. If your friends shape your choices, your mood, and your behavior, are you hanging out with the right people? Healthy friendships are meant to push you forward. A study in Frontiers in Psychology says peer support networks are pivotal for promoting mental health, academic achievement, and social adjustment. Other research shows that people with strong, supportive friendships are happier, more confident, and better at coping with stress. So take a second to reflect. Do your friends challenge you in a good way, or do they hold you back? That answer matters more than you might think. When I'm on TikTok, I often come across this guy named James Dumoulin, and he runs a channel called The School of Hard Knocks, where he travels the world interviewing some of the most successful people out there. One day, he interviewed Michael Franzese, a former mobster who ended up turning his life around. James asked him what advice he'd give to the younger generation, and Michael said something that really stuck with me. You want success in life, get these two things right. Number one, in this life, we are who we hang out with. And number two, who you are accountable to will direct the path you go on. When I was on the street, I was accountable to my boss, and I was a criminal. That hit me, mainly because it's true. If you hang around 5 criminals, you're likely to be the 6th. But the opposite is also true. If you surround yourself with 5 people chasing success, growth, and purpose, you'll rise too. The people around you either push you forward or pull you back. So here's the big idea. Your friends, online and offline, shape your habits, moods, values, and decisions. They help to build your identity. So ask yourself, who are your 5 people? If you want to grow, surround yourself with people who inspire growth. If you want to lead, surround yourself with leaders. If you want to change, you guys get the point. It starts with your circle. And like I said earlier, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So choose wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Next up, I'd like to invite up Professor Brandon Grammer to introduce Stephen.
Hello. Anna and Jonathan have done a great job. I don't want to have the Brookdale thing on my forehead. And I just want to say how much I appreciate that, how well they run the honors program. And I'm also happy to see from my class that I taught last spring, I think the whole class is here. So that is good for retention, obviously. So I'm happy to see all of them. And they've done such a good job presenting, so no pressure for Stephen, right? Stephen is going to go from Brookdale to Rutgers to study business. And in the years before, he's been doing a lot of training for that. He's a waiter, a barback, and he runs his own business of power washing. And from that power washing business, he's told me some tales of how much he's learned about customers and how much they've taught him about how to be a good businessman. So whenever he gets to a house, he pulls out his phone, he takes a picture of every nook and cranny. So when he's done and they say, oh, why is there this little hole up there in the eaves? He can point out, like, it's been there for a long time, and I am in no way responsible for the squirrels that are living there. Right? So I know he's going to be a great businessman after he does that, because he's really been studying what it's going to be like to be a businessman in 4, 5, 6 years, like how much it's going to, how much he's going to maybe rely upon AI, or maybe I think his dream is to have a business with no AI. I'm not sure he can do that, but we'll hear his views on that right now. Thanks.
Hello everybody, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Steven, and today we are going to be taking a look at something that's exciting and rather terrifying, which is how AI will be transforming the job market. So let's start simple. What is artificial intelligence? Well, artificial intelligence at its core is when machines do things that normally require human smarts, like recognizing faces or writing and sending emails. Why is AI advancing so fast and rapidly? It's because we are swimming in data. Computers are faster, smarter, and more powerful than they have ever been. And let's be honest, tech companies aren't just innovating. They're in a race to replace us with faster, smarter, and cheaper counterparts. But what happens to us when our identities, our mental health, and the work that once defines us disappears? For many people, work isn't just what they do, it's who they are. It's how they contribute, connect, and find meaning in the world. AI may not intend to cause any harm, but the emotional fallout of job displacement is real and it's deeply human. Some of the everyday jobs that are most likely at risk right now are data entry clerks, cashiers, and telemarketers. And that's because they're easy to replace and they cost less. According to a 2024 report by McKinsey & Company, approximately 12 million American workers will need to transition to new careers by 2030. This is due to AI-driven job displacement. The study highlights that 75% of these projected job losses will occur in 4 sectors, the first one being office support, customer service and sales, food services, and production work. These roles often involve repetitive tasks that AI can automate efficiently. Michael Chu, a partner at McKinsey Global Institute, noted that lower wage workers are expected to be most impacted by these changes. The study found that Americans in lower wage jobs are up to 14 times more likely to change occupations by 2030. Conversely, demand for higher wage professions in industries like healthcare, tech, and transportation is projected to grow considerably. This underscores the importance of adaptability in the face of AI advancements. And it's not just workers feeling it, consumers are too. Automated assistants are stepping in where people used to help. Driverless cars are making travel more efficient, but less social. And customer service handled by AI instead of real conversation. We're gaining efficiency, but often at the cost of human connection. However, not every job is at risk. Some remain relatively secure because they only rely on skills and human qualities that AI is not capable of doing yet, like empathy, hands-on problem solving, and emotional judgment. Now, some of the jobs that are safest at this very moment are teachers, therapists, artists, electricians, and mechanics. This doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be replaced in the future, but these jobs depend on trust, creativity, and most importantly, real-world experience, things machines still struggle to truly grasp. But here's the twist. The people who are often safest from AI are the ones building it. Positions like software engineers, data scientists, and auditors. It's ironic that those who are most protected from AI are often frequently the ones who develop it. Systems are created by software engineers, trained and interpreted by data scientists, and responsible by auditors. Their work remains crucial because it combines technical expertise, human judgment, and ethical oversight. All areas that AI is yet to match human capability. So what can AI do? At least, what can AI do well? Well, AI cannot truly understand and feel any sort of human empathy. It can't make intuitive and value-driven decisions, and it can't exercise moral or any sort of ethical judgment. These aren't just technical limitations. They're what make us human. And where they are, our strength lies in the world increasingly shaped by automation. Here's the very bottom line. Not all jobs are doomed, but many will transform. What we do may change, but why we do it, meaning connection and purpose, all that stays. In a digital age, the real winners are the ones who stay human. As we race towards the future, we can't afford to leave humanity behind. The choices we make now will decide whether technology serves people or replaces them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Next up, I'd like to invite up Professor Anne-Marie Hughes to introduce Renata.
Hi everyone, I'm pleased to introduce Renata, Arutiunian. I had the pleasure of having Renata in my Marketing 101 Introduction to Marketing course in fall 2024. Renata moved here from Ukraine when she was 16 years old. She's been working in social media marketing since 2020. She has worked with many wellness and beauty companies, as well as a jewelry company in Manhattan. Next semester, Renata plans to transfer to Rutgers to pursue a career in marketing and eventually wants to start her own marketing agency. So I'm so excited for her to share not only her experience at Brookdale, but her experience out in the real world in her presentation today in an evaluation of marketing. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Renata, and today I will be talking about the evaluation of marketing. So the first question that I want to ask, why do people buy things they don't really need? The answer is so simple. We often buy not because of the real need, but the influence of external factors like social trends, emotions, and advertising. We are convinced that we need something, even if it's not the case. this proved that marketing holds incredible power. It's not just about promoting products, it's more about developing a strong strategy that make you reach for something, evoke emotion, and create desire to buy. Without marketing, our market could not simply operate, and we wouldn't be aware of many brands. Marketing is the ability to sell a service or a product in a both way that benefits businesses and their target audience. It has existed since the earliest form of trade, essentially as long as people have been exchanging goods. As soon as the first trade transaction took place, early forms of advertising emerged. This means that marketing history dates back to the very beginning of commerce. The earliest advertising was primitive. Paper scrolls listing goods or services, marketplaces, whereas the verbal advertising played a key role. And artisan creation designation marks for their products much as modern logos. The first sellers were peddlers. These were traders who moved from village to village and sold goods for people. They didn't have a permanent point, they carried everything on their bags, carts, and so on. In some countries, this type of sales is still relevant, especially in the places where no other way to get goods. At one time, peddlers sold everything, from tools to fabrics. They were lead marketers. They used everything now it's called marketing tools, from starting a client to creating a unique selling proposition. The major turning point in the history of marketing was the innovation of printing press. The revolution innovation transferred communication and email marketing to a whole new level. People began using newspapers, leaflets, and posters as tools for advertising. As become widespread promotion everything from theater performance to services and consumer goods. This marked the beginning of mass communication and marketing. The 19th century marked the beginning of one of the most powerful eras in marketing, the Industrial Revolution. During this time, modern technologies started to emerge, and some of the well-known brands such as Coca-Cola and Pepsi entered the market. Branding began to develop along with the introduction of the first packing designs, helping products stand out and build their recognition. These early brands gained popularity quickly, becoming iconic due to their pioneering presence in the market. It was also during the time when the first advertising agency appeared, notably Walney P. Palmer's agency, which is considered one of the first in the United States. As technology continued to evolve, billboards and posters began appearing on city streets. These were a modern evolution of traditional printed leaflets and signs, offering a new and more visible way to reach the public. The 20th century was defined by the rise of radio and television advertising. In the United States, the first advertisements were broadcast on the radios, and soon after, advertising became a visual medium with the appearance of commerce on television screens. During this time, people began to take advertising more seriously, and it started to be studied on the psychological level. Marketers began analyzing consumer behavior, exploring how advertising influenced people, and developing new strategy based on consumer needs and preferences. Direct advertising also became an important tool. People receive promotion letters by email and mandatory reminders in the United States by this day. In the 21st century is already quite remarkable. With the advent of the internet, digital marketing has emerged one of the most powerful and effective tools of our time. But not rush ahead. It all began with contextual advertising and the first banners ad, which were extremely popular in their days. As the internet evolved, social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok started to appear. And they have, and they have now become an essential part of modern promotion. If we were to calculate all of the sales generated through the social media marketing, the numbers will be staggering. Bloggers and influencers also began to rise in popularity, playing a huge role in today's advertising landscape. You follow them, began to trust them, and essentially trust their recommendations. And just like that, you buy a new product or another service. Our idols and favorite online personalities have a significant influence on us, especially on the young generation, which drive massive sales for brands. The current trend is rapid development of artificial intelligence, which can be also effectively used in marketing. Today, AI enables us to create personalized advertising, develop chatbots, data analysis, and much more. Marketing as a field has already become incredibly advanced. With modern technologies, we can design detailed strategies, study how marketing influences human psychology, and even manipulate customer behavior to drive purchase. Now we are also seeing the rise of neuromarketing, which explore how the brain responds to advertising stimuli. Looking ahead, the development of virtual reality is expected to gain momentum and become a powerful tool in marketing world. Thank you so much for your attention.
Great job, Renata. Before intermission, I'd like to invite up one more presenter, and then we'll take a quick break. Professor Kevin Squires is going to introduce Arthur Fumarella, and here we go.
Hello again. Yes, I'd like to introduce Arthur Fumarella. I've been working with Art, well, he was a student of mine, but we've been working together since September. Arthur's one of the NASA STEM students, and he did research on the effects of an eclipse on, I'm going to say sound waves. Hang on, I knew I'd get it wrong again. On radio waves. Arthur is going to move on to Rutgers in the fall, again, to further his computer science studies. And he has been actually looking at eclipses since he was about this big. There's pictorial evidence of that, as you'll see, yes? All right, so he's done a great job on it, and it is a very interesting field of study. So here you go.
I'd like to start off by thanking my mentors, Kevin Squires and John Maglicane, along with Nancy and Anna, and then Jonathan as well. Thank you very much for your support. My name is Arthur, and my project is the effects on the solar eclipse, the effects of the solar eclipse on radio waves. So we'll be looking at the impact of solar eclipses on the ionosphere's D layer and F layer, the changes in radio signal propagation during eclipses, and how the 2024 total solar eclipse influenced the propagation of low-frequency radio waves, particularly those transmitted by WWVB at 60 kilohertz. We'll be analyzing how reduced solar radiation during eclipses alters ionospheric ionization and radio propagation, and measure changes in high and low frequency at 60 kilohertz radio signal strength. We'll be looking at two frequencies, low and high. Low frequencies range from 30 to 300 kilohertz and is represented by the D layer. And then high frequencies range from 3 to 30 megahertz, which is represented by the F layer. The D layer ranges from 60 to 90 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and it absorbs frequencies, while the E and F layers range from 90 and beyond to about 1,000. E is from 90 to 150 kilometers, and then F is 150 to 1,000. And they reflect instead of absorbing. One fun fact about solar eclipse is that it mimics nighttime ionization loss in minutes, not hours. It has an impact on D layer when ionization drops that causes reduced absorption, which leads to enhanced low frequency signals such as AM radio. A decrease in electron density for the D region and an increase for electron density for the F region is what happens during the solar eclipse, and they have the opposite effect. The data we'll be looking at was transmitted from Fort Collins, Colorado to New Jersey, which is about 1,622 miles. When the eclipse reached totality, it had an 88% obscuration in New Jersey, which is the percent of the sun that blocked New Jersey. Signal strength rose as the D-layer ionization plummets. Some tools used for data collection was a magnetic loop antenna for signal reception, and then a stereo FLAC file capturing both WWVB signal and GPS reference tone. Totality started at 1912 UCT and then ended at 1916. And then recording in general started at 1600. Key observations: signal strength spike rose by 6.2 decibels at 60 kilohertz, and the path lengthened as D-layer altitude rose. The path that the receiver and transmitter followed was the Great Circle path, which is just the shortest distance between 2 points. WWVB signal started at 1730. It reached maximum obscuration about 63% at 1841, and then last contact was 1954. The KD2BD first reached contact at 1810. Maximum obscuration was at 1925, and then last contact was 2036. And then the peak obscuration was 88% in New Jersey. Okay. So over here, you'll see the latitude longitude of the transmitter, and then the latitude longitude of KD2BD, and then this image shows the distance between the two with the Great Circle path. In this graph, you will see that the maximum usable frequency was about a little over 10 during the eclipse, and then a month later it was at a little over 8.5. So the maximum frequency rose, which causes high frequencies to have better communication and clarity. In this graph, you'll see that the D-layer density, electron density, decreased compared to a month later, and when the D-layer electron density decreases, ionization also decreases, which allows for better communication. And up at the top, you'll see that the F2 layer, it increased, which, as I stated before, D-layer and F-layer have opposite effects. So since it increased, it allows for better communication and clarity. It's very hard to see in these graphs, but on the day of the eclipse, the lateral distance that the frequencies were allowed to travel slightly increased, and that was for the D-layer or low frequencies. In this graph, you'll see that 0.344 compared to a month later of 0.361. So the critical frequency of the D-layer decreased, and as stated before, when frequencies decrease, it has a positive effect on low frequencies, which allowed it to get better communication, longer travel, and better clarity. In this graph, this is for the F layer critical frequency. You'll see it's about 9.8, and then over there it's 8.8, so it increased by about 1. And when the high frequencies increase, it allows for better communication, travel, and all that. Results: low frequency signal clarity improved, high frequency overall communication improved during the eclipse, and the eclipse had a very positive impact on both low frequency and high frequency radio wave propagation. Limitations: WWVB south antenna was damaged due to a storm that happened a couple weeks prior, so the power was 30 kilowatts compared to 70, and observations were taken in a short range from Colorado to New Jersey, and the eclipse isn't a very long event, so if it was longer, we can get better data. Future work would be to analyze the 2017 eclipse and the 2023 eclipse to compare to the 2024 April 8th eclipse. You can also look at different frequencies, such as very low frequency, medium frequencies, which would be the E layer, and high frequencies, which would be the F1 layer just below F2. The solar eclipse alters ionospheric behavior. With eclipse, the low frequencies and high frequencies don't have that big of impacts, but the low frequencies benefit and the high frequencies benefit even more. And this confirms the sensitivity of the D to F region ionosphere, that it's quick to change in solar radiation. I'd like to thank everyone again, and then here are my references, and finally, here's a little picture of me looking at a solar eclipse when I was 12.
Thank you, Arthur. So we would like to give everyone a few minutes break. You might have noticed that there's no cellular reception down here, so you might want to step out to check your messages. But please come back in less than 10 minutes so that we can move things along. We have 6 more presenters to go through. The presenters who are coming up, please come up to make sure that your presentations are downloaded. So I would like to give everyone except the future presenters a break.
Maybe in another life.
Still going to the success sign? That I think is Tuesday. Oh, that's graduation? Yeah, that's what it's going to be.
Move over. Oh, just went, and you just stepped it up. at some of them then. I mean, like, that's just.
Yeah. I think so.
All right, let me get you guys first, see, just in case. Never get any. Okay. All right. You're gonna try to get group one at the end, okay? Are you both presenting?
All right, who's coming up next? Come here.
Let me just get a single picture.
Okay, yeah. I'll be back down there.
All right, thanks, Brad.
Fernando, can you download your presentation? Thank you.
Great.
Thank
I wrote something too, and I kind of winked it based on what I wrote.
So Juliana and Alexa.
Here's Alexa.
Hi, Alexa.
You still have to do yours, right?
Yeah. I love your hair. It's gorgeous. You're not nervous.
It's just, I feel like mine's so different.
That's okay though. And we do have different ones in the second half. You know, on a lot of diverse topics and stuff. Yeah. Different is good.
Very like,
Different is good.
we're gonna know a lot.
No, you got it. You're great at presentations. Plus, it's a positive one, you know?
I had a question. Is the like clip mic or the?
We can get that.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Or this one, but you prefer that?
I think so. Just because I use I like gesture. I use it a lot.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Ange had it.
Yeah, I know that the first presenter. Oh, it's right up here.
You see it?
I Spy? I think it is, yes. Oh, except, I think I might need to be wearing pants.
You really should have some.
Can I put it in the top of my vest? Let's find out right now.
Well, they go all the way down.
I think it's totally wrong.
Did you download
Send out a reminder. Everything is flipped.
I wanted, oh my god, Tuesday. Wait, can I log out? Or it's like, how are you gonna click and hold your hand?
No, I fully agree, but I was nervous. And I'm not wearing pants, but I think it will work in the back of my dress.
Oh, yeah, I literally, well, yeah, I have my phone.
Yeah. But I think I just tried it on. I think
Okay, yeah, do that instead. I was told that.
No, I was like, that's what
Okay,
I want.
yeah. Literally, when I saw it, I was like,
That's great.
yeah.
Juliet?
Please.
Oh, Alexa?
I've ever said it. No? I don't think I've ever said it.
Yeah, they really did. I don't know, I'm so excited. That's like one of the
I was just thinking about that today for some reason. Because I wanted to Yeah, I mean, I'm learning a lot. I will say. I remember.
Things like this. That's what it wrote.
Well, yeah, because I've been like, They do, yeah, to read all of that,
We are ready to begin again. So I would like to invite up Professor Rosanna Alvarez to introduce Alexa. Please have a seat. Thank you so much for coming back.
Hey everyone. I've had the incredible fortune to work with Alexa Kempel throughout her undergraduate career here at Brookdale in 2 different courses, and of course this semester as her honors advisor and I think one of her biggest fans. Alexa is the kind of student who doesn't seek the spotlight, she avoids it. but regardless, leads so that others can shine, rolls up her sleeves and just gets it done. And one of the many things she was able to get done these past 2 years is service learning volunteer work for 3 different classes across multiple organizations throughout Monmouth County. When we sat down together at the start of the semester to talk about what she wanted to work on, she knew that she didn't want to just do like a report on her volunteering or secondary source research. She didn't want to just do slides. She wanted to do something. And so she decided to do service learning all over again for her symposium project, and she went back to Project Paul, and she wanted to get primary sources, so then she included a survey and all of this for the symposium showcase today. And Alexa will be continuing her studies at Monmouth University to pursue her BA in Early Childhood and Elementary Education. She served as the secretary for the Education Club and has been an active and engaged member of Honors Association, PTK, NSLS. And along with successfully completing her AA in Education, she will also be receiving the Women's and Gender Studies Academic Credit Certificate of Achievement. And while again, she is no fan of the spotlight, I am so happy and proud to announce that she will be recognized with an Outstanding Student Award in Business and Social Science at graduation. It is my sincere honor to introduce Alexa Kemple.
Okay, is it working? Okay. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Alexa, as you know, and I decided for my project to choose the impact of service learning, but also volunteering because it's something that is super important to me. And I decided to do an inspirational presentation, so I hope that by the end you are inspired. So you may be asking, what is service learning? For those who don't know, it's when students have a chance to engage in the community and be able to use what you're learning out in the community and bring it back to what you're learning in class. It's important to me because I've done, as she said, 3 service projects, and that totaled over 60 hours in the last 2 years. I volunteered at 3 different organizations, Project Paul, which I'm going to be talking about today, the Rain Foundation, and Change, which is right here on campus. So you may be asking, why is this important? Of course. So you see a few pictures up here, which will be important for my later discussion. So you see people at the food bank, at the animal shelter, beach sweeps. There are so many different ways to volunteer. So why should you? Helps connect with the community, helps work on social skills. I know for me, it helped me really break out of my shell, and I made a lot of new friends. You might even have a new passion, a hobby, or interest, or you may even find a new career. Like at the animal shelter, you might realize that you want to work with animals. But a lot of the time, most of these charities and organizations are strictly 100% volunteer based. So it's important for us, these people in the room, to go out and make the difference. So one thing I learned about while I was researching reasons why you should volunteer was something called the happiness effect. The more you volunteer, the more happy you are. It said that monthly, if you volunteer once a month, you are 7% more overall happy. Every 2 to 4 weeks, you are 12% more overall happy. And weekly, even a week or 2, 16% more happy. So something I learned while I was volunteering was about food insecurity. This is where people don't have access to the proper meal and nutrition they need for surviving. This could be for many different reasons. Low income, having to spend money on medical conditions, price of like housing and bills and childcare. But I found a statistic that came from 2022 from New Jersey that over 900,000 people were food insecure and over 200,000 of them were children. That makes up 10% of people and 13% of children that do not have proper access to meals at home. So now, my work. I decided to go back to Project Paul, where I volunteered last semester a lot, and I decided to give out a survey and talk to people around and hoping to bring some inspiration to your presentation. So I asked 3 different questions in my study. How long have you been volunteering here? Why did you start volunteering here? And what is your favorite part about volunteering here? So firstly, how long have you been volunteering here? For those who took part in my study, I had a very wide range of answers. They go from 2 to 20 years, and these people dedicate every single week, 3 to 4 times a week, and they go out and they are there all day, and it is their job. They consider it a job, which you'll see in my later slide. So a lot of the answers I got for why you started volunteering here, a lot of them are retired people, and they were bored at home, and they wanted to go out and help others, which I think is great. So now for my favorite question. I asked them what was your favorite part about volunteering here. So I'm going to read a few quotes that I took from my survey. So I just love getting to help others in the community, because who doesn't? My favorite part of working here is the wonderful people and friends I've met here. I also enjoy the clients who come in daily. I know I spent a lot of time there, and I even met a lot of people and remember them, and we're on first name basis because they come in there and they rely on the programs that are given there, so they have a really close relationship with a lot of people that come in there. I gained 6 new sisters working here. I know a lot of them consider each other family, and it's really great. My favorite part of working here is all the wonderful people I volunteer with and all the people who stop and shop every day. I know so many of them very well. Seriously, this is the best job I've ever had. I love it. And lastly, I enjoy volunteering at Project Paul because it fosters a sense of purpose, strengthens the community, and offers personal growth. So now, I'm doing a call to action. My presentation was not only to show why you should volunteer and why you should go out, do service projects, and help the community, but to inspire you all to take the initiative to go out and do something. Whether that's today, tomorrow, next week, this summer, or even this year. These organizations rely on people like us to help them. So, if you all could take out your phones and open the camera and scan my QR code, you will be linked to over 20 different organizations that take place right here in Monmouth County. And you can see from the chart on the left, I made that chart myself, those are just some of the stars that take place in Monmouth County. And there are so many different opportunities. There's food banks, there's animal places, you could teach kids to swim and dance and ride bikes, but I'm hoping that you'll take this time later to look through all of these and maybe find something that sparks your interest. And I inspired you all to go out and do some good. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa. Next up, I would like to invite up Professor Eric Gohl, who's going to introduce Dean.
So, Dean is the type of student professors can only dream of having, and I'm sure a lot of your professors are saying the same thing about each of you. Let me tell you a little bit about Dean. He was born in Brazil. He moved to the United States in 2019. Only knew a little bit of English, lived with his aunt, and the rest of his family stayed in Brazil. He went to high school during COVID, which made everything more difficult. He took a dual enrollment class in high school and got a B in a humanities course, thinking it was only for credit. And since then, he's at 4.0, so while holding 2 jobs. So he told me that yesterday, but that B is still on that transcript somewhere. I first met Dean when he took Chem 101 in the fall of 2023 with me. Of the 2 sections I taught that semester, Dean had the highest average of all students. And students they take 4 unit exams. You can take an optional cumulative final. So going in after the 4th exam, Dean had over 100% average in the course. So on the day of the cumulative final, he walks in, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I want to see how much I remember. I didn't study, but I want to see how much I remember." He got a 95%, which was the highest grade of everyone who took the exam, who presumably studied. And after 101, he took Chem 102, but due to conflicts with other courses, he couldn't take me. He had to take someone else. So that was a bummer for me. And it was a huge honor when Dean asked me if I would be his mentor for this project. Dean is a perfectionist, so even while the other presentations were going on, he was rehearsing. And I'm very excited for him to get to share with you his honors project. and Dean will be continuing his studies at Rutgers. Here's Dean.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to present you with the real risks of nuclear weapons. I'll be discussing moments in history where miscommunication, accidents, and geopolitical tensions nearly led to nuclear war and disasters. The development of the atomic bomb began during World War II when the United States, fearing that Nazi Germany may build such a weapon first, initiated the Manhattan Project. This top-secret project brought together some of the most brilliant scientists of the time, including figures like Robert Oppenheimer, to build this weapon. The atomic bomb operates on the principle of nuclear fission, where the nucleus of an unstable atom, such as uranium-235 or plutonium-239, splits apart when bombarded by a neutron, losing some of its mass. This splitting triggers a chain reaction, rapidly releasing huge amounts of energy, as explained by Einstein's famous equation E=mc², which shows how even a tiny bit of mass can be converted into a huge amount of energy, because c, the speed of light, is a very large number. The atomic bomb was first used in warfare on August 6, 1945, when the United States dropped a bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The explosion instantly killed 70,000 people, many of whom were civilians, with many more dying from radiation sickness in the following weeks and months. Just 3 days later, a second bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, with another 40,000 people being killed. These remain the only ever use of nuclear weapons in combat. Today, many people believe that as long as nations have these weapons, but they do not use them, we're safe, right? They act as a deterrent. But this perspective ignores some other very real dangers of nuclear weapons. Many examples of such dangers come from a series of incidents known as broken arrows. Accidents involving nuclear weapons that were lost, nearly accidentally dropped, and nearly detonated. Some of these incidents occurred during Operation Chrome Dome, a Cold War program in which US bombers were kept airborne at all times ready to retaliate in the event of an attack from the Soviet Union. It was during the first year of this operation, in 1961, when a B-52 experiencing fuel leaks broke apart mid-air over Goldsboro, North Carolina. The aircraft was carrying 2 hydrogen bombs, each significantly more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima. Unlike the simpler atomic bombs used in World War II, the hydrogen bomb has 2 stages. It uses nuclear fission to trigger nuclear fusion, a process in which isotopes of hydrogen are forced together under extreme heats and pressure to release even greater amounts of energy. This is the same process that powers stars, including our sun. Out of the 2 bombs that's dropped, one nearly detonated. Multiple safety mechanisms failed, and it was only one single low voltage switch from detonating. Had it exploded, it would have caused mass casualties across eastern North Carolina and caused a severe national crisis. Another broken arrow accident occurred near Palomares in Spain in 1966. A B-52 collided mid-air with a refueling tanker, causing 4 hydrogen bombs to drop. Out of the 4 that dropped, although none of them detonated, conventional explosives in 2 of them exploded on impact, releasing radioactive material across the countryside. The 3rd one landed intact, but the 4th was lost in the Mediterranean Sea for 81 days. While accidents involving mishandling of nuclear weapons pose serious danger. Some of the most frightening moments in history stemmed from miscommunication and heightened tensions. One of the clearest examples is the Cuban Missile Crisis of October 1962. The Soviet Union secretly deployed nuclear missiles to Cuba just 90 miles off the coast of the United States. President John F. Kennedy demanded their removal, and for several days, the world stood on the brink of war. It was during this crisis that an incident aboard a Soviet submarine happened. The submarine, without outside contact, was surrounded by American ships, and it was low on air. Unbeknownst to the Americans, this ship carried a nuclear torpedo. The Americans hit it with practice death charges intended to force it to surface. The crew inside believed that the war may have already started, and they prepared to launch a nuclear torpedo. However, launching required the approval of 3 senior officers, and while 2 gave consent, only one, Vasily Arkhipov, refused, likely preventing a full-out nuclear war. Individual choices continued to play a role even beyond the Cuban Missile Crisis. In 1983, the Soviet Union's early warning system falsely detected incoming American missiles. Policy meant there had to be an immediate retaliation against the United States. Colonel Stanislav Petrov, who was monitoring the system at the time, made a critical decision. He judged the alert to be a false alarm, once again saving the lives of most people on this planet. These are just some examples of how these weapons pose a danger, not only in their intended use, but also through accidents, mishandling, and errors. How many more cases like these have happened? There were multiple broken arrow accidents, and many other nations have had accidents of their own. How many more do we not know about? How many bombs were nearly detonated or lost? However, there is hope. Since the Cold War, significant effort has been made to reduce nuclear stockpiles, with thousands of nuclear weapons being dismantled. However, as long as there are any weapons, there is still a very serious risk to global security. The ongoing effort to reduce and ultimately eliminate nuclear armament remains one of the most important challenges of our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Great job. So, next up, the next advisor is Professor Jess Levine, who could not be here today, but I think pretty much everybody who's had Montez as a student or has had anything to do with him would love to introduce him to the group. So the honor goes to Professor Mushberger.
Absolutely, of course, it is an honor to introduce Montez. So I have a little script that came from Professor Jess Levine that he wanted me to be sure that I shared with everybody. So he says, over the course of the last year, I've watched Montez grow greatly as a scholar. He's worked hard to develop strong, supporting background to his analysis and arguments in his writing. His comparative skills have broadened and blossomed. His deep intellect and what I would term inner light, if you know him, you know what I'm referring to here, have guided him bravely and relentlessly in his academic work. His curiosity is unbounded. However, Montez's honors project on presidential photography really frames a very special and almost innate gift that he has. I was used to witnessing it in his papers and the questions that he raised in class. Here surfaced again in this project. Montez has just an uncanny eye for realizing and seeing things in ways that no one else does. When I first looked at the photographs with him, I mistakenly thought, yeah, it's going to do it this way with them and see it that and them. Nope, not him. Caught me right off guard again. And as I tried to steer him in some additional directions, he was having none of it. He says, good for him. To be a scholar is also not to be just a little bit stubborn. Today we celebrate Montez's powerful, intellectual, interesting, refreshing, and delightful vision. So much more to come. And signed Professor Jess Levine, history. But I can attest to so much further, accomplishments and incredible feats of Montez. So it's an honor to be able to share Professor Levine's introduction with everybody. Everybody, Montez.
Hello. So I want to briefly go over why I picked presidential photos. So right now I'm in my photography class. It was an additional class I could take here at Brookdale for my finishing off year for the humanities aspect. I'm a poli-sci student, but I have a big interest in media and the arts. I had a podcast for a little bit when I talked about local politics, and so anything regarding media and politics and the combination of both are very powerful. And the ultimate expression, I think, when it comes far to the past, when it comes to media, is of our presidents. There used to be this mystery when it comes to presidents, especially when it came to George Washington, for example. We always assume George Washington, our founding father, were a bunch of old men that came together, when the average age of most founding fathers were 19. And it's because of the use of drawings and other things, that's why we see them that way. And it also relates to why we are picking older people today, because we assume that's how they were like. But ever since the 19th century, when photography came into the media, we start seeing what presidents actually look like. The first thing that comes to mind is President Waltz. He was our first kept photo. There's many pictures of presidents. Sadly, a lot of them were disappeared through time, but luckily Waltz was the first one they captured and kept in the Congress. And so that took 30 minutes to take. And so now photos can take seconds, and there's so many of them. And so this project was finding out all through the hundreds, thousands of published photos, not even ones that people kept to themselves, and what exactly represents each administration, starting from 2000. Of course, our Y2K president was Bill Clinton, but he wasn't elected there, so I didn't count him. We're starting off with George H.W. Bush, and a lot of people already know this photo. This photo was taken during 9/11, so we have to remember that George W. For him, none of it was on the schedule for that day. Some might think it was, but it was not on the schedule. So he was planning on going to Florida. So he was in Florida, Emma E. Elementary School. There he was in Florida. There he was reading books to children. A lot of things people forget because of the war on terror was that George W. Bush had a big interest in public education. He's actually the one who put the No Child Left Behind Act. A lot of controversy there and a lot of different opinions when it comes to it, but he had a big interest in public education, so it explains why he was there that day. He was reading The Pet Goat to the children, to the second grade class. It was a whole slew of media taking photos. This photo was taken by Paul J. Richardson. So during this moment, a lot of people don't know who's actually whispering to him. That is his chief of staff. So his chief of staff usually isn't around for these events, but he was the one assigned in telling him exactly what was going on for the country at the moment. So he interrupted the photo session and the reading of the book to inform him about the first attack on the Twin Towers. The reason that I picked this one in particular, of course 9/11 was a huge moment in American history, but it's a conversation about leadership and in-moment decision making. Think about it. He was in a moment completely unattached, had no idea that this was going to be a day where the biggest terrorist attack since Pearl Harbor was going to occur. And what do you do? What would you do in that moment? What is he thinking? Of course, we know contemporary what he did next. And a lot of people think that it's the reason he got his re-election as well. But this was a big moment for his administration and just him as well. So next up afterwards was President Barack Obama. I kind of cheated here. I picked two photos, but I think it was really important for for why I picked two photos for Obama. So the first one at top there is very important because it's at the Edmund Prentice Bridge. For those who don't know, this is where the historical event Bloody Sunday happened. It was during the 1960s civil rights movement where a bunch of police officers brutally attacked protesters for simply protesting legally. And so Obama recognized the situation by in 2012 bringing together a bunch of civil rights leaders and a bunch of politicians together and walking the path that they all did. I think this image is very powerful of him because of the comment that came along with it. Of course, a lot of people viewed as a big racial win when Obama won the presidency. But Obama used this to talk about that this is not a post-racial America, and that America was born and has a lot of racial inequalities that still exist today, and that simply him winning as president won't get away the history, but he will help lead us forward into a different time. And the reason I picked the second one is because it doesn't involve the idea, even though Obama had a lot of ideas involving inequalities, this one speaks more on just his intellect and him thinking about every decision. A lot of photography when it comes to presidents is ones of like big decision making, such as JFK during the missile crisis. But this one was a simple decision on, well, not simple, it was Medicare, but at the same time, it was small percentiles that he was changing it from 5% to 3%. But for him, every decision was important. And there was this thought behind his decision making that makes him such a good leader. So next up, afterwards, is the Trump administration. This photo was very interesting. Not just because of what is going on here, but the date this occurred. So for those that don't know, this is his 2020 State of the Union, the last one before the election. That is Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi ripping up his speech right after he was finished, and then Mike Pence applauding it. The reason this is so important is because one day prior to this is when his impeachment trial for the House occurred. Then the House voted for him to get impeached. But the following day, the Senate, the one that Mike Pence is in charge of, did not vote. So I think it perfectly represents the polarization that was going on at the time. Nancy Pelosi, person upset and frustrated at what's going on, and doing a protest that even though both of them are trying to, in a way, get his reaction, neither of them are getting it. And I think that's the biggest comment that is going on here when it comes to the Trump administration, is that his loyalists and people that are his disparagers don't matter when it comes to his decision making. And it's all about what he's viewing next. And similar things happened to both Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. Mike Pence they were both there during January 6th, but Mike Pence in particular was targeted as for being the one who's going to put Joe Biden into office, and then Nancy Pelosi was later attempted attack at her house. The importance of recognizing both of those incidents is because they don't matter in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the Trump administration. Now at the second term, two completely different people, and the same things continue. But because of the polarization that we're talking about here, it led to only one term, kind of a pause, but moving to Joe Biden. I labeled Joe Biden the COVID president because, so this photo was taken by Jonathan Erst. So this was a press event. This is the first time that a president used a press event to promote a vaccine. Vaccines in America have a big divisionist history. A lot of people have a lot of information and ideas on vaccines. And for the president to step forward and say that him as the leader of the country openly all the last 3 presidents that I referenced did take the vaccine, but he is the only one who publicly did it. And I think that's important in referencing when it comes to Joe Biden, is because he was the president that moved us past the COVID-19 epidemic, and he brought not normalcy, but normalcy when it comes to our environment. Even though COVID-19 is still around, he kind of lessened the impact. One of his biggest successes was the nonpartisan infrastructure bill, which was very important. And so a big naysay when it comes to, and I like this photo in particular because after his presidential run, there was a statement saying that he spent 40% of it on vacation. That was, it's a false information. It was actually only 8%, and the reason I show this photo is because of the location of the photo that he's at, it was on a vacation spot, which was, he did spend 40% of his presidency in vacation spots, but he was still doing business. So it was like it's a false hood. So if you ever see that statistic, this is the vacation. So an honorable mention, because technically his administration isn't done currently, is Donald Trump's 2nd term, and I mean, we all know this photo. This photo became legacy. This is one of the most defining photos in American history, honestly. And the reason that it does, it encapsulates what I think what he was running off of. And let me see, of this comment of "Take America Back." That is, if an image would say that, I believe it would be this image. This is him saying he wants America back. And partially for his win was because of this image. And it has to be put in the fact of, and it's not just him as an individual, but it's a president, or at this time an ex-president, getting shot. And showing kind of a human nature of presidents and of our leaders, that we usually don't have depictions of any form of media, of any leaders being harmed or hurt at all. And so for him to get shot in the ear humanized him into a different way. And also, speaking on a contemporary way, seeing people that aren't political being engaged with this photo of them, of like people you weren't even expecting to be Trump supporters, sharing this image. It spoke to America in a different way, but still I label this as an honorable mention because the administration isn't done and there speaks of another impeachment trial. So who knows if this administration goes all the way through. So yeah, that was mine. That was my honors symposium. Thank you guys. Here's my sources.
Can I just say that Tess is running for graduate trustee, if you haven't seen her.
I won.
You won! Congratulations! You're graduate trustee! All right. That's excellent news. All right. Next up, I'd like to invite Professor Marlena Frank to introduce her next.
So many great things happening in here, right? Congratulations. My name is Professor Marlena Frank. I'm a psychology professor here, and I am in such awe of our next presenter, Fernando Camarino. I could go on and on all day about his accomplishments, but I do want to highlight a few things. He took my positive psychology class in the fall, and when he came to me and asked for me to help advise him on this project, I was so excited because he's incredibly brilliant, but incredibly balanced. You know that saying, still waters run deep? He's always calm, he's always cool, he's always collected. I envy that. But there's so much going on. So he's graduating with his AA in psychology. We don't know where he's going yet. There have been some acceptances. It's the great mystery, so we will all hang on tight. I'm sure it's going to be a great ride no matter where you are. Obviously a member of the honors program here in PTK Honors Society. He is co-president of the Society of Latinos, VP of the Dreamers Club, Executive VP of the Honors Association. Most recently found out that he's going to be accepting the Outstanding Student Award for the Business and Social Science Institute next week at commencement. Not only is he an academic achiever, remember that part where I said he's balanced, calm, cool, collected, he also works at a local arcade and has lots of friends. I don't know how he does it. When I asked him to describe himself for this introduction, he said he would describe himself as resilient, surprising, and mysterious. I would describe Fernando as with some of his character strengths, which you're going to learn about today. He's determined. He's filled with grit, passion, and perseverance for long-term goals. He is a natural leader and a natural learner. More important than all of those pieces of his character, he is compassionate, he is kind, and he is empathic. He's going to be presenting on the aspects of positive psychology, which is the science of thriving and flourishing. And his number one goal is to be a mentor to those who have not had the opportunities as he has. His older brother being his mentor and has meant a lot to him, paving the pathway for his future. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Fernando.
Yeah, so positive psychology is science behind thriving. Before we get started, I want all of you to think to yourselves, what do you think of when you hear the word psychology? I'm sure many of you think about the negative side of things, maybe depression, mental illness, disorders, or maybe an image of a therapy session going on in your head. And that's the thing about psychology. For a long time, and even now, we continue to be focused on the negative aspects, on what is going wrong instead of what is going right, which is not a bad thing because obviously we have gotten so far and we continue to discover new things every day. But also throughout the time of psychology, there have been many subfields that have popped up throughout its time. One of them being positive psychology, which is completely focused on the opposite, what is going right instead of what is going wrong. But to compare the two, traditional psychology has been pathology-based. As we know, we can rename Freud's theories, behaviorism, you can throw out so many theories out there. But really, what allowed psychology to blow up was World War II. During World War II, a lot of soldiers experienced shell shock, which is now known as PTSD. And shortly after World War II, the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, popped up. If you don't know what that is, it's a handbook that highlights 260 mental disorders, formally defining them and giving how to diagnose them. And this has really all tied to what I was talking about, psychology being associated with those negative terms, mental disorders, illnesses, whatever it might be. But on the other hand, we have positive psychology, which is focused on human flourishing. It's relatively new compared to everything else, only being founded in 1998 by Dr. Marty Seligman. And he saw this void in psychology, this void that, we've been focused on just surviving, as he would describe, getting just to zero and nothing past it. And that's where he focused on thriving. That's where his idea behind surviving versus thriving came in. And to sum it up, positive psychology is what makes life worth most living, which is actually a quote by Peterson, who was the right-hand man to Seligman in finding the values in action. Just like the DSM, just like traditional psychology, positive psychology also has its own manual in the values in action, which instead of outlining disorders, outlines character strengths. These character strengths, which are in the handbook, 24, and all of us have all these 24. Some show more than others. Some of us might be, I know we have many leaders in here that might shine through most of us more than something like joy or hope. But according to Dr. Marty Seligman, really focusing and leaning into those that shine through you the most is one of the fastest ways to flourishing. And another fast way, or one of the ultimate paths for flourishing, is PERMA. PERMA, obviously an acronym, I'll describe it in a little bit, has been seen as the ultimate path for flourishing. The 5 pillars, what you need to focus on the most to flourish. P, being positive emotions. These are 10 of the most studied positive emotions in psychology. Just naturally, some of us experience more of these than others, and these we see pop up in our everyday lives, you know. Hope towards the future, joy in enjoying our present moment, and gratitude allows us to be grateful about our past. And just a general rule of thumb, you should be experiencing at least 3 positive emotions to every negative emotion that you feel. Engagement. We all have jobs, we're coming to school, we engage in our hobbies every day, and just naturally we also lose our sense of self in that. We lose sense of time, and this is because our skills and our strengths are really able to shine through. Whether you might be really good at the drums or might be strong in a subject, it allows your skills to fully be shown. Another way to flourish is your relationships, and potentially the most important one. We're completely surrounded by people, we make friends, we have family, and we keep them around because of what they provide to us. You know, the sense of belonging, this joy that they bring to our lives. And it's not only about receiving, but also what we can give out. They allow us to express, build our capacity to express these positive emotions, like love or like gratitude towards them. And actually one of the longest studies conducted by Harvard since 1938 has followed people throughout their lives. And those who are the happiest, have lived the longest, tend to have the strongest relationships. So it's just something to keep in mind. Meaning, kind of self-explanatory, it's something bigger than yourself. It could be family, it could be religion. It gives us a sense of purpose, and tying it back to engagement, it allows us to work towards that. Whatever it might be, work for your family, whatever it might be. Achievements, we pursue success, because obviously it makes us feel good. I know many of us are graduating in this room. It's a big win for many of us, but it's also important to celebrate the small wins. I know for many people, getting out of bed in the morning is a win in itself, so it's important just to see what's important for you. But also it's important to not chase it for the wrong reasons. I'm sure all of us want to be rich someday, but also we don't want to throw everything out the window, our family, whatever it might be rich, and then we have nothing left over. But how do we actually pursue this? How do we actually grow our character strengths? Through positive psychology interventions, or PPIs. Number 1, savoring. Really our capacity to take ourselves out of the moment, feel what we need to feel. I'm sure many of us wish we could go back to a point in time, a moment, because we didn't appreciate it enough. This is just really allowing us to do that. Optimism, there's an exercise that you can do in a journal, answering the question, what if it all works out? Basically just answering your best future, whatever you want to do in life, whatever your social circle might look like, and has actually shown an increase in positive emotions. Random acts of kindness could be something simple as holding a door, complimenting someone. And studies have actually shown that 89% of those who give out positive or random acts of kindness tend to feel at least a little bit better, and those who receive it, 90% of them tend to feel at least a little bit better. So it's a win-win for everyone. Gratitude, something simple as naming 3 things that you're grateful for every day. It has also shown an increase in positive emotions, and these positive emotions can last up to 12 weeks after you've written your last journal. And I could throw statistics at you guys all day long, but I know sometimes what means more is a personal experience. These are all moments in my life that I have learned how to savor and be thankful for. At the beginning, when I took Professor Frank's class, I remember her saying, by the end of this class, you will be happier. And I've never told her this, but I kind of brushed it off the shoulder, like, there's no way I'm taking a class at Brookdale. I can be happier. But here I am, giving a presentation on positive psychology. So, throughout Professor Frank's class, before she would give us assignments, name 3 things that you're grateful for. And soon, that assignment that I did for a grade turned into me self-consciously being thankful for what's around me. My friends, my experiences, and through other practices that I've shown you guys, I've been able to appreciate all these moments a lot more, even if it's something simple as walking down the path of parking lot 1. I've really been able to take myself out of moments and be thankful for them, and I have to enjoy them a lot more. So as I end off this presentation, I ask all of you to think to yourselves one thing that you're grateful for, sit with it for a moment, and take it out with you through the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you for remembering. So the last two the presenters were mentored by none other than Professor Moshberger. And so I will hand over the mic to him for the rest of the speech.
Hey everybody. So, yeah, I am so happy. It's an honor and a privilege to introduce our next speaker, Juliana Magliocco. I had the privilege of having Juliana as a student in my Intro to Political Science honors course. She immersed herself in all of our course activities. Our theme was awareness, advocacy, and action, and Juliana gave wonderful presentations that focused on a core issue. For example, education is a passion of hers. More on that in just a little bit. And it needed a spotlight on it, and she shined that spotlight on it. And she presented her research. She gave an impassioned performance of her excellent scholarship. Because Juliana is so cool, I just have to tell you a little bit more about her. I heard once she was described as an old soul, but this old soul is definitely young at heart. Speaking of which, check this out. Outside the classroom, Juliana gave up her time to join me and some fellow honor students, several of whom are in the room today, one of whose idea it actually was. I don't see him right now, though he stepped out for a moment. We partnered together with a local elementary school for a volunteer venture. And what it entailed was reading a book to kindergartners and first graders. And it was really special. The students loved it, and our students loved it too. I mean, it was such a joyous occasion. And Juliana is a prime example of giving up her time and taking the effort to make a difference in the lives of others. Speaking of volunteering outside of class, Juliana engaged in service learning as part of our class experience and to fulfill requirements of her major. And through many hours of service, Juliana gained extremely valuable first-hand experiences that will serve her incredibly well as she embarks on her next phase of her higher education journey and then blazes down her desired career path. With plans to study secondary math education at Kane University, Juliana is poised to embark on a journey of academic and professional excellence. I would say she already lives this. Becoming a teacher is her destiny, and Juliana will make a positive difference in the lives of countless students. She is currently a certified math substitute teacher. Her desired career is to be a math high school teacher and college math teacher, math professor, I should say, a professor. That's so cool, right? I have somebody you could talk to about that. By my estimate, she's doing everything right. Unfortunately, she doesn't have enough time for hobbies, but she does like to go shopping to the gym when she does get the time. I'm thinking we have to find her some more free time. Some of her favorite things are teaching, of course, and even tutoring students. But check this out, she told me this, so I have to tell you this. She likes chicken parm, and burgers are her favorite food. Anyone getting hungry? It's getting close to eating time, right? So I told you she's a cool old soul. I'm so proud of her and so grateful that I got the chance to work with her. Her presentation today is Bent Not Broken, and we plan on leaving you in suspense just a little while longer to what this is all about. Everybody, please welcome Juliana.
Thank you everyone for attending today. My name is Juliana. Today my presentation will actually be on the topic of scoliosis. I, for one, do actually have it myself. Whenever I would tell anybody that I do have scoliosis, their first question is to me, oh my God, did you break your back? Did you get into a car accident? And the first thing I tell them is I am bent, not broken. So actually, what is scoliosis? It's actually the spine is made up of rectangular bones called vertebrae. It normally looks straight from behind your back, but in scoliosis, the spine either curves to an S or a C curve shape. which I will show you. In more severe cases, like mine, was a backwards S curve, or C. This is also just because the vertebrae are rotating, making the person appear to be leaning to one side. This picture right here is not me. You'll see that later. But more so, just almost like me, was a very high thoracic curve and a higher bottom curve, hence a double curve of a severe S curve. So this is a different type of scoliosis. So if you can see in this first picture, this is a healthy spine, no curve, no scoliosis of any sort. This left picture here is a thoracic curve. It can either go on the left or the right of your top of your spine. The bottom lumbar curve is from mid down. It can either go left or from the right. From here is a thoracico-lumbar scoliosis, which is more of just a C curve, either left or right. And how I had was a combined scoliosis of double curves of a top thoracic and lower lumbar, either left or right side. So one of the most common questions is why scoliosis is more common in girls than in boys. One of the main ones is hormonal differences between the male and female body. Some estrogen also affects the spinal growth, making girls more prone to scoliosis during their puberty stages. And second is growth spurts. So girls are not fully grown at a younger age than boys. Boys tend to grow 10 times slower than girls do. There is a bigger factor when you have a growth spurt. Your spine does grow with you, so you tends to wiggle around a little bit more in women. Genetic factors or genes are mostly tied to bone development, and all are development differently in females, raising for more of a risk of having scoliosis. Some structural differences: females may have some spinal features that do increase susceptibility of having this, and some more progression rates of how scoliosis does progress more faster in girls, leading to their more noticeable curves, and they do need treatment more so at a younger age than boys. So some different types of scoliosis. The most common I did have is idiopathic scoliosis. Still to this day, scientists and most researchers do not know what causes it. It's mainly about 80% of the world's mystery in people's bodies. Researchers do believe that idiopathic scoliosis runs through families of some sort of genetic linkage, like really, really far out, like 6, 7, 10 generations before you. And it can develop at any age and can be classified at any age. Sorry. Wait, there we go, sorry. Okay, so just to explain some of the terminology that I will be using. So your cervical vertebrae is from T1 to C2, right at the top of your neck bones. Your C stands for cervical, and the 1 and 2 stands for the amount of vertebrae per bone in your spine. Your thoracic vertebrae is from T1 to T12, so there is from top of your neckline, so around here, all the way to the bottom 12th vertebrae in your top part of your spine. And your lumbar is L1 from, it's really L6, but we tend not to touch that because you would not be movable. So we count only L5. Some over here, so this picture right here also describes some infant, juvenile, and adolescent adult scoliosis. Usually just gives you the years of range. And your degrees, summing this up, so your lower degree range of your spinal cord, that you would not need scoliosis, any treatment for it, would be under 20 degrees. You do not get braced usually until around 30 degrees. And more severely, over the degree of 40 to 45, we tend to go for surgery. Okay, so the next most common scoliosis occurs in babies and newborns that have muscle controls around the spine. They are more weak and cannot support the spine, leading to a curvature. Most of this neuromuscular scoliosis usually comes from some sort of condition of cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, the Frederichi's axia, and spinal cord injuries. So this is actually a picture of a girl that is 7 years old. She does have cerebral palsy. She really has a really high C curve, hence the shape, and she does have neuromuscular. Just because of her being born, she wasn't strong enough to support her body. The third most common is congenital scoliosis. This only happens at birth and affects about 1 in 10,000 newborns, caused by improperly formed fused vertebrae. So hence the bottom pictures right here, you'd have fragmentation, failure of formation, just kind of different spinal cord that you normally do not have in the average spinal body. Okay, so just the differences between thoracic and lumbar scoliosis. So on the top left picture right here is a picture of right thoracic, left lumbar. So if you can see, the top is on the right hand curve and the left of the lumbar. Here is only right thoracic, which hence is a C curve. And on bottom right here is a right thoracic lumbar curve. So you have a right thoracic, and you tend to do have a bottom curve if you do have a larger curve on top. And the top right is a left lumbar curve, which hence is the C curve on the bottom left. So the main difference is between thoracic is on the right below your neck bone until mid-back, and your lumbar involves your mid-back down. So some symptoms of scoliosis is uneven shoulders, your head is not aligned with your body properly, uneven hips, one shoulder blade is higher or more prominent than your other one, and your arms hang unevenly when bending forward and tend to have rib asymmetry. Some treatment options, I've actually had 2 out of these 3. So the first one is a Boston back brace, which I will show you a picture on the next slide of what that looks like. It's very uncomfortable, but it is shaped to your body and your curvatures of your spine. And it is a usually PVC plastic. It goes from, for women, under your bust until a hip of yours, and for men, it tends to go more so on your chest down. So some spinal fusion surgery, that tends, I will show you another picture too, tends to have a couple rods, either 1, 2, or 3, or sometimes 4 rods needed. You will have screws going between each vertebrae as well. And tethering is actually one of the newest methods of science research. Does not involve a surgery of rods and screws. It is actually rod and screw free. More so for the ages between around 7 and 11 years old. When you are still growing, you cannot fuse your spinal cords, or else you will be stuck at 4'9" for the rest of your life. So that is more of a, I would like to say, shoelace kind of method of maneuvering your spine. Okay, so on the top left picture here, this is an example of spinal fusion surgery. So hence the spine, you have, these are 2 rods here, they're titanium rods, and you do have cobalt screws going all the way more so till 3/4 way of each vertebrae in your spine. Here on the bottom is a tethering method, so kind of hence the shoelace method I was telling you about. It's more thinking about braces on your teeth, and they take a big string of some sort and maneuver each part of your spine to where it needs to be, pulling it to be straighter. And on the right here, this is actually, I actually had to wear this. This was not my brace, just for what it looked like. This is more common in women as well. So the bottom here has a hip piece. It goes chill around here on your hip. The back has 3 Velcro straps, usually for more of a severe case. And the top left also has a place for uneven shoulders to kind of hang, and they lift you up so you're straighter. Okay, so actually, here's my story. I'm living proof of my presentation today. I got diagnosed with idiopathic scoliosis at the age of 7 years old and wore a Boston back brace from the age 10 to around 15 and a half. And then it unfortunately did not work, and I got my spinal fusion surgery when I was at the age of 16, which was very, very much to take in at that age. So I got actually fused from T2 to L3, which is right, actually I'll show you, right from here all the way down to around here, my whole back. Oop, sorry. Okay, I had a double curve. I was a top thoracic, right thoracic and left lumbar, and my spine was at 72 degrees on top and 69 degrees at the bottom, and now I live perfectly at 10 degrees on top and 5 at the bottom. I had my spinal fusion surgery done, and I now live with 2 titanium rods and 21 screws in my back. So if you see on this right-hand side picture, this was how my spine originally looked. So I had a really, really big curve on the top and a bigger even one on the bottom. And this is actually me after surgery. I had 2 rods in here and 21 screws. If you can see, this is how actually far the screws go in. It's around 3/4 of your vertebrae, since the vertebrae stops around here per vertebrae into your spine. And actually, fun fact, the rods actually bend with you, so you're not immovable, which was great. And I faced one of the actual hardest surgeries there is, more than heart surgery. Okay, so this is actually my prom of 2023. It took me a really long time to love my scar and actually wear an open back dress and really be proud of myself. So actually, I don't know if you guys can see from the picture, but you can kind of see half of my scar showing. It was kind of red at that point in time, but got whiter. And everybody always asks me, oh my God, you can't flip and tumble saw and flip around anymore. I used to be a big dancer. So I used to always practice flipping and twirling around, and I always get, oh, are you like weak now? And I said, no, absolutely not. I got myself all strengthened up. And actually really fun, one of the biggest boasts that I can ever make about myself is when I'm 90 years old and a granny, I will not shrink 1 millimeter. So, thank you very much. Sorry.
Awesome job, Juliana. Way to go. All right, everyone. It is my absolute honor to introduce our final presenter of the day, Juliet Neese. Juliet is quite simply amazing. She's a trailblazer, a difference maker. Her path is abound with beautiful things. Some quite tasty, too. More on that shortly. It's an honor and a privilege to know her. I'm so fortunate that I got to have her in my Honors Intro to Political Science course. She was brilliant in class, a leader, an incredibly passionate speaker, and she made the class better. But beyond her academic prowess, her creativity, ingenuity, and spirit shined. One awesome endeavor that she and her classmates took the initiative to bring to campus was called Promote the Vote. This incredibly special effort was to raise awareness amongst their peers about the importance of civic knowledge, being engaged, and casting educated ballots. At this session, Juliet co-hosted a game show. It was really cool. It was a blast. Everyone loved it. I loved it too. The whole program was fantastic. It was one of the greatest, most awesome honors experiences I ever had with all of them. And this came from the students taking the initiative. Juliet was instrumental in making it so much fun and a complete success. I need a lot more time to tell you all about Juliet, but in the essence of time, I want to share a few key things with you. Let me share some points of note. She's a business administration major and will be attending Rutgers Business School. She hopes to own her own business one day, hopefully highlighting her baked goods. Speaking of such, remember I teased you earlier about the tasty treats? Well, Juliet baked for our class and everyone raved about her food. She is a fantastic baker. With that in mind, she currently serves as a pastry chef at Porta in Asbury Park. In fact, she was doing that right before this. She was hard at work. Some quick activities and interests. Juliet played for Brookdale's soccer team, which was awesome. She loves to bake, of course. She loves snowboarding, playing soccer, and she's very into yoga and fitness. In Juliet, you have somebody who's wise beyond their years, someone who makes a difference, someone who amazes me, someone I am so very proud of. Everyone, please welcome Juliet.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be presenting on something that I feel is very important and affects us all, which is the detriment that the top 1% of income earners have on our society and how that affects all of us. I'm going to be outlining how we got here and what we can do to try to rectify this situation. I'd like to begin by putting things into perspective for everybody so that we can begin to grasp really who I'm after and the wealth accumulation that is to be targeted. The average full-time Amazon employee made $37,930 in 2020. In order to accumulate as much money as Jeff Bezos, their CEO, an employee would have had to start working in the Pliocene epoch, which is about 4.5 million years ago, when hominids had just started standing on 2 feet. And this is accounting for this employee saving every dollar for over 4 million years. And I just want to talk about the truth of the matter, which is that the ultra-wealthy avoid paying taxes in 3 big ways. First, they don't sell their investments. They borrow against them so that they can avoid the capital gains tax. And then when they die, those those taxes are erased because the value of the asset is reset at death. So when they pass on these investments to a successor or a son, somebody else in the business, they basically don't have to pay any of the taxes that may have accumulated during their lifetime, and they get to start fresh and new. Finally, they use a variety of legal loopholes to pass their wealth without paying estate or gift tax. This is known as the income and estate gift tax trifecta. Once a person has gone beyond a certain threshold of cash, their options for evasion become limitless. But why should we care? Well, the reality is that you are not one of them, and none of us are. The rarity that comes with being this wealthy is an impossibility. The richest people in the world make 6 times more than the bottom 90% of humanity. Collectively, that's $2.7 billion a day going into the pockets of this top 10%, while 90% of humanity lives below, significantly below that, and 10% of Americans, more than 10% of Americans, live below the poverty line. Additionally, they are contributing to the environmental catastrophes that we are facing more than anybody. 125 of the world's richest billionaires invest so much money in polluting industries that they're responsible for emitting an average of 3 million carbon tons a year. 3 million carbon tons is more than the average American emits in their lifetime, and this is what they're doing yearly. This is accounting for their industries and not even their personal endeavors, which includes their private jets and just the overconsumption that is accompanied by mass wealth. Additionally, they undermine our political system. 40% of political donations come from the top 1% of the 1%, meaning that there is a very small elite group of people funding our politicians, which leads to policy control and just overall laws being implemented that favor them and not the mass majority of the population. But how did we get here? Well, there's a lot of things that contribute to wealth inequality. There's technological change, globalization, the decline of unions, and the stagnant minimum wage. It is a common principle of economics that as inflation increases, minimum wage is supposed to coincide with that increase. We are not seeing that happen in America, specifically because of the billionaires' artificial inflation of the economy. They make us seem as though we are doing better all collectively, all of us, but the reality is that there's a very small portion of us doing very well, and the majority of us are suffering. And the disappearing middle class is something else that I would like to point out, because although there's not alarm bells sounding quite yet, we are seeing a trend of middle class incomes slowly deteriorating and getting closer and closer to that lower class threshold. A lack of a middle class is one of the most famous indicators of a depression and a recession. It is what led to the French Revolution, and it is something that is definitely to be feared, and we are seeing a continuous trend of this happening in America. But what do? Well, we need immediate action. We need to cap individual wealth, we need to accompany that with degrowth, and we need to ensure that the mega rich are paying their fair share in taxes, which means that we're fixing our taxing system. As I mentioned previously, there's a variety of legal loopholes that aren't available to the average American because most of us don't have the ability to hire teams of lawyers and legal teams that are able to advise us in a way that would be able to manipulate the system in our favor. Billionaires live in a world of loopholes. They constantly undermine and rework our system, and they have to pay for their actions, both literally and figuratively. So what's the plan? I believe that libertarianism is the way to go. This is a political theory that was introduced by Ingrid Robbins. It explains the need for a wealth cap by changing state policy, beginning redistribution and reallocation of those funds to public goods and to those who are currently living below the threshold. That, coupled with degrowth, could level the playing field for the average American and be a positive step, a huge step in a positive direction. But will it work? Well, I believe that with global collaboration and public support, there should be no reason why libertarianism coupled with degrowth wouldn't work. They would work simultaneously to redistribute wealth back into public good while keeping the economy stagnant. And I know degrowth, economically stagnant can sound like alarming words, but again, I want to remind you that this stagnancy would come from the redistribution of wealth that already exists in our system. The positive economy and the high GDP that we all have seen and that that we often see bragged about, and America's a wealthy country and all of these things, there's a very small portion of people that are causing that to happen. And the reality is that we can reshift and refocus those funds in order to maintain the economy that we all love and that we're used to without having such an unfair distribution of that wealth. So what can you do to make change happen as soon as possible? Well, I'd recommend contacting your local representatives. I'd explain why these changes are important to you and what these issues are impacting in your daily life. Advocating for a higher minimum wage and closing the loopholes in our tax system are pinnacle in achieving something so great for the average American. We also would like to see expansion in public infrastructure as well as expansion in the earned income tax. These changes could bring us closer to a world where there isn't yacht-toting CEOs existing alongside starving children. I appreciate everybody for listening to me today, and I hope that you take what I say to heart and you understand that taxing the rich is one of the most beneficial things for all of us, and we could all benefit. These are the sources I use to get my information. Thanks for sticking around to hear me speak last. I appreciate it.
Awesome job, Juliet. Way to go. In fact, how about a huge round of applause for all of our presenters? It was fantastic, right? The speeches were wonderful. All the preparation, all that hard work, the nerves, right, that went in today. I mean, it all paid off because every single presentation was brilliant. They were fantastic. It was so exciting. Who learned something new today? Who learned a lot new today? Yeah, that was awesome. So awesome. I want to show you a couple things to wrap up with. And let's see. All right, so Honors Symposium, remember what I mentioned earlier, it's our capstone, and our students, in fact, capped it off brilliantly. Notice the cap, pun intended, right? And this one I love. I love this picture so much. She's so excited, right? And I hope you feel that way for our students. I hope you feel so excited that you've done this, that you've completed this, that you're now going to be honors graduates. Maybe a little bit like this too, like, it's over, right? It's over and you did it, right? I mean, this is a nerve-wracking experience to get up here to have to speak before an audience, right? Public speaking. This is one of the fears greater than death for some people, right? But you did it. You pulled it off and you pulled it off brilliantly. So to our graduates, I want to say congratulations so very much. Your journey has been an amazing one, you know, filled with beautiful things. And now you're all going to be honors graduates. And we're going to celebrate with you on Tuesday, of course, at our Honors Graduation Celebration Luncheon, and of course at graduation itself. We're going to celebrate your success. I want you to keep in mind that you started your higher education journey here at Brookdale, right? You started your higher education success story with us, and I want you to keep in mind, don't forget Brookdale. We're so grateful that you came here. We appreciate you so much. I'm so proud of every single one of you, but I want you to stay in touch, right? Stay in contact with us. Let us know your success stories as you continue on from Brookdale and go to other great feats in life. Make sure you stay connected. I want to do a plug for our success sign because we're going to meet there on Thursday after graduation, after each ceremony. Remember, we meet there and we do some pictures and have a great celebration with you and your families on that special occasion. So don't forget, tuck that away. Parents, right? Remember that as well. We'll meet at the success sign after graduation. So I want you to remember this again. Today, graduation, and always, that each new day should be unwrapped like a precious gift, because it really is, right? It really is, and you showed us that today. Today was a gift. It was a gift to all of us, right? And our students, you made that happen. You made it happen. You're so special, right? So very special to us. And I want you to keep this in mind. When you're here, your family. It's so true, right? You're part of our Brookdale family. I often like to say we're a community of scholars, right? The honors program is a community of scholars, but it's more than that. It really is. It's family. And so when you're here, your family. You'll always be part of our Brookdale family. So I want to say thank you so much, everybody that came out today, all of our colleagues, the family, the friends, our students. Thank you so much for coming to support our graduates and their awesome presentations today. And it's such a pleasure, privilege, and an honor to be here with all of you. And how about a big round of applause for our presenters? I can't stop raving about them because it was so fantastic. I absolutely loved it. On the dot, we did it. And so 5 o'clock on the dot, that's so perfect. But don't go. Presenters, we want to take a group picture. All right, so can you all of our presenters, can you come up front for a special photo to close out the program? Everybody that came, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all of you. I think so. Thanks so much.
It will be somewhere at 6. That's over an hour.
I have her for the picture.
No, I have the invitation.
You want me to take a picture of you?
Thank you.
Oh, there's 2 more.
2 more.
So we're just missing.
I feel like
Do you want to go up or are you okay from there?
yeah, that was a pleasure.
Yeah, but it's so cool.
Good. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Can you stay for me too? Awesome, everybody. Any other parents want to get some?
Thank you. You guys were rocking. You did amazing. Yeah.
There's some more family coming for pictures. Here they come. There's more coming.
It's just like a...